All right, and welcome to the show. This is the Weekly Jargon. I am Jose Rodriguez.
And Rohi Zachariah.
And today, Rohi, we are absent Abel, but Abel will join us again next week. We're going to bring you some updates of the local and national election, right?
Yeah.
So these are the updates. Your take on last night's election?
Well, I fell asleep early because it was so exciting, So, no, waking up this morning, I think it was, to a lot of people's surprises, is the direction it went. Maybe it wasn't a surprise. I don't know. Maybe I think it happened the way we hoped it would, with people kind of being fed up with things. So,
Well, before we dive in, it certainly took a tick on the stock market, right? So if anyone's holding any stocks right now, it looks like the stock market did really well for the day. And typically, I think after elections, it's either a positive or a negative. And thus far, it looks pretty positive. But you mentioned something about maybe this lasting for a couple days and going back to normal in a couple of days, right? Is that something we expect?
Yeah, I think it's still a lot of it is the knee-jerk emotional, reactions. I mean, we saw gold and oil dip because obviously now it being more right-leaning, their promise, if they keep it, is to lower the prices on this stuff, and so, but that still may come back around, and I still think that's with some of the stocks too.
Well, the funny thing is that I had a Tesla stock there. I didn't have a lot of shares, but the little bit of shares that I had, they certainly had an increase for the time.
So you're already doing better than you were 4 years ago.
Definitely. Well, yeah, I guess you can say that, right? When I first bought it about a year ago, believe it or not, I took a dump. Went down. I think it was down to less than $190, and I figured, okay, I'm gonna buy it at its lowest point, but it went down lower, and as of today, it looks like it's done pretty well. So, I mean, again, Tesla's expensive. I don't have a lot of stocks in that. For me, maybe close to 15 stocks. But either way, that's a little bit of money that I'm up ahead.
Yeah.
Either way, it looks like the stock market rallied a bit, but now at our local level, we have a new president, right? So it looks like now Donald Trump ran away with it, and I'm not sure if that's official at the moment, but it also looks like the Senate is going to take control of the Republicans are going to take care of the the Senate, and the House may be up for grabs. I'm not sure how close that race is, but that seems like it's pretty close. And if that's the case, then this would be historically, not too many times do you have one specific party running the whole House, Senate, and Republicans. Typically, you see a split, maybe a Democrat president, a majority Republican House, and a majority Democratic House, or vice versa. But now this could be a landslide where you have all the Republican Party controlling all facets of the Congress and the presidential race there. But anyhow, locally, any surprises to you?
I think it was a bit of a surprise. Again, I think at the surface level, I think what you see is, again, everybody, kind of voicing their opinion that enough is enough and that they want some kind of change. And that change, unfortunately, was more party line changes, because I think the Republicans, like you said, even at the local level, did far better than the Democrats. Now, as far as, we've talked about it before at the local level, what does that really mean for me, the Madeiran? How does that really change me? Because I know typically, correct me if I'm wrong, but for the, at least the last, few elections, the seats that are held by, like, city council, for instance, tend to be more Democratic, right? I mean, so I know the two that won last night or potentially are winning are definitely, the Republicans. So I don't know. How do you feel that some of that may come up? You think that's something that's going to affect our city council as a whole, or?
Well, you want to look at the city council seats as nonpartisan, right? You always want to see them as nonpartisan. You're looking out for the community, but unfortunately, a lot of us that sit there sometimes sway a certain way, right? They sway the Democratic Party or the Republican. But truthfully, I think being a nonpartisan is what really makes the community what it is, right? We should be working together regardless of party lines. I think at the end of the day, we want to see that this city grows in a very positive way, right? But that's not the reality. Reality is when it sinks in, it's like, well, are you this or are you that? And you should be this or that, and you should be pushing these agendas, and this is what we'd like to see. And you see that. I mean, it definitely floods into local politics as well. I mean, there's no way of getting around that. So sometimes, like you said, I mean, if you look at and I'm looking at the elections right now, this is, again, unofficial. There's still some mail-in ballots that are required, but for the most part, you'll notice that, how Madera typically votes, especially the county, right? So as we go down and we drill down, we'll start looking at all the senators, right? I mean, we see, quite frankly, that a lot of it is red, right? It's a very conservative county, and that's kind of the way things have been here in Madera. I don't think I've seen too many times where blue has really taken over, especially within the county, especially in these seats. More importantly, look at the congressional districts, right? I know this was supposed to be a close one here, but it looks like John Duarte is pretty much on the way to win this, especially here in Madera. The state assembly, I mean, this is another close race, but it looks like, well, I mean, it's too close to call. I wouldn't be able to call that one there. But
now, do you? I mean, we've seen this time and time again. We've always talked how, again, Madera is very, conservative and more right leaning. But yet, I saw you on that ballot running unopposed, and I know you're not quite the Republican.
Well, I consider myself a moderate. I mean, I'm always conservative values as well, but I'm also, I look at certain things in a progressive way, right? I mean, but again, moderately. I'd like to see, certain changes, obviously, but I mean, I'm always sticking to like how I run my house, right? And I think if you look at the way I run my home, or how we run our home, it's in a conservative fashion. We're not very left wing or very right wing. We're in the middle, right? We like to be in the middle, and that's kind of. I think after 4 elections, I kind of felt good that I ran unopposed, and that's not saying anything about any particular party, but I'm hoping that it's because people feel that I do a good job where I sit, right? And that's the opportunity. They granted me the opportunity to run for 4 more years, and we'll see. I mean, obviously, people have different ideas as time goes by. That certainly happened in the last 4 election cycles that I had, and that was great. I mean, it's always good to have someone challenge you because, the status quo is not always the best. We get complacent, and a lot of times, people want change, and we have to adopt to that. But moving through this here, Rohi, we'll see how, here you do see Esmeralda. I mean, this is your Democrat, right? That did win pretty well so far. I mean, it looks like she's leading the race here in Madera. Again, it looks like Merced, I think she may be up ahead as well in the areas that she represents for the assembly. On the city side, I think you're going to have, it's still, one would say it's still a close race because if this is unofficial, then, I mean, we'll see where it's at. But it's starting to lean like maybe your current councilwoman, Gallegos, may be.
And you said some of that is because there's still some
there may be some mail-ins that they did last minute. I'm assuming it says there that it's pretty much 8 out of 8 precincts. Yeah. But again, they won't certify this until I think sometime in December. And after that certification, then yes. But I mean, they'll have updates going through. If it starts getting closer, then we'll know. It's hard. I certainly don't want to call it, but I mean, people can certainly see. That's why we have the screen up where it's leaning, right? Yeah. And again, yours truly there, 100%. I'm kind of glad to see that there wasn't any write-ins. Yeah. So it's good to see that again. To me, it's a thank you for the people that entrusted in what I do. I hope that I can continue to serve the city, and always put the city before me, because I think that's the key thing is that. I'm not in the seat to try to, I don't have an agenda, so to speak, to try to bring certain things that would benefit me, but rather what benefits the community. And I think if people can see that through my actions and my decisions at the council, my questions at the council, then they'll understand that that's really what I mean. It's what's in the best interest of the community. And I hope I can continue to do that. I'm not swayed through either party and what have you, but rather stay in the middle and neutral, and again, looking for what's in the best interest of the city.
Yeah.
So that's enough about me, So moving on, obviously you'll see that the other races here in the city council, you'll have these here look like this one's, once you're up 62%, it's really hard.
Yeah. Percentages seems big, but I mean, you look at the real difference in vote. I mean, it's not a city block could have swayed it either way.
Correct. And if I may, Rohi, interject there, I'll tell you, in my second election, I ran for the school board, and I shaved it down from 80 votes, which I thought I wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
I shaved it down to be up 3 votes to come to lose by, I think, 1 or 2 votes.
Mm-hmm.
And that hurt. That really hurt because in these local elections, it does matter.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I do recall, and people will remind me of this, is did you do everything you could, right? Did you go out there and knock? Did you call that last person?
Yeah.
And frankly, I kind of felt confident because I heard over and over, you got this. You got this. And the you got this got me to think, well, after noon, after 12, I felt like I put my signs around the certain voting areas and certain homes, strategic, and I didn't make no calls.
Yeah.
I made calls the day before. I made calls the week before, but I didn't make the calls the day of. And I think that was a valuable lesson for me. It really humbled me, but at the same time, it told me that you can never stop until the last vote is in or till 8 o'clock. And it hurt me because obviously I lost. I mean, here I was. Election night, I was at this party we had, and I'm down by 80 votes. And just like that, just like what you see there sometimes with the percentages, I didn't think I could come back. And over the days leading up to the certification, there was votes coming in, and these precincts were coming in. And sure enough, I shaved it from 80 to 17, up by 3, and then boom. And a couple days later, they found some ballots, and it wasn't in my favor. So, anyhow, long story short, it taught me that value the grit in this campaign. You have to get out there. You have to get out there and knock. You have to turn every rock, and that's one thing that I've learned. So far, again, I got lucky this time around, but it looks like so far this is where it's at. This could be one that's also very close. Obviously, this is only off by 36 votes, but I mean, again, there may be some additional.
And at what point, with that kind of a race right there, do they have the ability to ask for a recount, or?
Well, you can ask for the recount. There could be. I mean, my deal, I thought it was done, so I already got called and congratulated the other person. But people in my campaign had asked me to call for the recount because it was that close, 1 or 2 votes. I mean, I don't know. I think depending on the size of the district, how many registered voters, that could potentially be one where you want to, you may. I mean, I'm not advising you to. I mean, obviously you have your campaign advisors to help you with that, but that's kind of where it's at. So as we're moving down, we're starting to look at, these are the city of Chowchilla. I'm not sure if this really pertains to us, but again, it does because you get to find out that these are also our local representatives within our school. And then we'll go through on some, maybe the governing boards here. I hate to say that there isn't one in there that may be a shocker for us, but we'll see how that one plays out. I mean, it's not over yet, but it seems like the percentages are certainly there. And then we'll look at some of the local measures. I think those are the big ones that were coming about.
Yeah.
You have your districts here for MID. Looks like those are, it's pretty close.
Very
one there.
close,
That Jim Erickson and Brandon Bichelle, that seems like it's pretty close. That's only off by, what do you say, maybe 30 votes or so?
30 votes, yeah.
Yeah. But all the other ones here, local measures, of course, T was one of the bigger ones. That was a lot of media on this one here regarding your local measure, half-cent sales tax for transportation. And this one, it needed 50% plus one. It looks like it's going to make its way through, unless there's something out there. I mean, it's almost like
So tomorrow I get my roads paved. Then is that what you're saying? So
Yeah,
Howard's going to be buttery smooth now.
It's not just tomorrow. Remember that this doesn't sunset till 2027.
Yeah.
So that would be us renewing that after that for an additional 20 years.
In its current revision, because I know there was discussion about it, was this written with the sunset clause, or is this now the forever until voters?
No. Obviously, that happened in 2022, and that's why it got such a bad publicity was because, we had surveyed. There was some survey going out there. There was a steering committee that had decided, hey, this is how we're looking at it from a survey point, right? We're asking people, would you be okay with it going in perpetuity? And for the most part, because of what it does, it really is out there to try to fix our local roads, streets, paving, seals, potholes, and what have you. And I know that was the biggest thing on people's head is what is most important with you when you think of transportation? My roads, the potholes, sidewalks, stuff like that. So we here in the city, we already have a system of how, when these funds are collected, how we utilize them, right? So we go through the public and we go through a annual expenditure plan. At the same time, we also do a capital improvement plan, a 5-year plan. And this is where we take input not only from the city council, from staff, but also from the people to come in and say, hey, these are the projects that are priority to us. And part of those projects come from some of the funding at Measure T, because we also have to provide an annual expenditure plan of how we're looking to expend this money. And you also have a oversight committee that also overlooks that. How are these best utilized? But every jurisdiction has their here's your pot of money. How do you want to do that? You deal with it, right? The county, city of Chowchilla, and the city of Madera. And I think that's key because a lot of people they misconstrue that, and they think that this is made by us sitting at the Madera County Transportation Commission.
Yeah.
But that isn't the case. That isn't the case. Measure T is again based on population, and that's how it's divvied up. Now, you said, are my roads going to be fixed tomorrow?
Yeah.
Well, there's a good percentage of that money that goes to that maintenance and operation of those roads. So whenever you see the crew out there working on a paving or whatever, that's your dollars. And the bad thing I think we do, not only as a county but also as a city, is that we don't promote it. We do not advertise what we do, right? And I think it's important for us that whatever
sometimes
projects,
you do. I mean, I see when they did the upgrades to some of the, I think it was Madera Avenue, they put the big sign. I think that was Measure C or something. I don't know. It wasn't Measure T. I think it was something else, right? That the tax money had gone to fixing
like
it.
SB1, for example, you'll see that down Avenue 9 or all these dollars. Yeah, but Madera needs to do a better job also of making sure that we also promote that and say, hey, funded by Measure T dollars. And we don't do that enough because we need to remind people that how these dollars are utilized, right? Again, we leverage millions of, for every dollar that we put into this pot, we generate $2 to $3 other dollars from federal and state grants. Yeah. So that's why it's important. And again, it was a citizens initiative, and that's all it needed. So it looks like that's going to pass. So we're looking forward to that moving forward. But so far, I mean, that's pretty much what we have going here, Rohi, as far as the
local
measures. We also had the other one that was highly contested, which is the Measure Q. This is the bonds for the, I believe, for the state center and or the Madera Community College that helps with them. And this one here looks like it's slightly, I mean, it's very close. I don't know. Yesterday, maybe at the beginning of the results, it wasn't leading, but after the precincts were counted, I think it looks like it may be up just slightly over 200 votes. Measure N, Chowchilla, this is their public safety deal. I think they're overwhelmingly approved that. No different than when I think we did our Measure K for our police and fire. I think people certainly see it, whether you're conservative or liberal, you certainly see the benefit in having that public safety. I'm not too sure what Measure F was.
It says bonds, so it's,
okay,
I think it's I don't know if it's a school bond or which other bond.
Well, it's not going to pass, so that may be.
So it doesn't even matter.
It doesn't matter, correct. So then you have all these propositions. The one that did pass is Proposition 36. I think that was a local proposition, which obviously now adds a little bit more teeth to the all these grab and go. So we'll see how that goes. Any talks on your end when you see people come into your?
So I mean, I don't like. like you kind of said, I don't think it was a surprise that it got a very popular vote to it, because again, for the majority, especially over the last couple of years, people have become just tired and fed up with just the overwhelming lawlessness essentially that's going into retail, and where people don't understand how that affects them, because I think at the surface level, again, people just go like, well, that's not me, I'm not stealing it, who cares? But they don't realize that those, chains, they're not going to absorb that loss. They're going to pass it on to you. So part of those reasons when you say, hey, why does my food cost more? Why am I paying more for this drill at Home Depot? Well, it's because every time somebody steals one, they have to make that money up. They can't just bite it, So I think that's definitely the message that went out. And I think we'll see what it actually, when it gets enforced, what it actually looks like. But I don't know. I think that was something that wasn't really much of a surprise that it passed.
So I just wanted to share this with you because it seems like the Dow sourced 1,300 points. Over the last couple of weeks, I mean, you would see it go 100 points and then down 100 points and up. And here at 1,300 points, that's pretty that's pretty high.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty good, I think, for one day, right? So, the one thing that does concern me is this something that's just temporarily?
Yeah, pump and dump.
Pump and dump.
Yes.
I think that's the term that we utilize.
That's the term.
These are our opinion, right, of what we see. Obviously, you have some stocks, I have some stocks. Nothing that's super big, but enough to be able to track to see where it's at. Because typically, when I see stocks do well, guess what I see do well? I see the interest rates do well, right?
Yeah.
So mortgage interest rates typically follow suit that, and hopefully they improve. I know back when the Feds had dropped the Fed rate, soon after, I mean, you started seeing rates kind of drop. We started seeing the light saying, hey, we're going to start seeing more and more people want to come out of the shadows and start wanting to refinance and possibly purchase. Well, shortly after, they're pricing their risk based on what's going to take place with the economy, what's going to take place with the election, right?
Yeah.
And we started seeing them kind of go up. I mean, obviously, the job markets are still showing pretty strong, so they're concerned about this thing coming back and being more inflationary. So, your take? I mean, are you still seeing that inflationary concern with a lot of the folks that come into your market?
It's still there, but again, when you say job markets are up, I mean, it's actually quite the opposite. I mean, I think that's one of the things by the end of this quarter, especially when corporations as a whole, but when they actually start reporting their numbers for this coming quarter, I think is when you're going to see the writing on the wall that no, the job market actually is quite in trouble. And again, that most of that comes not just from what I see, but what you hear, and you're definitely seeing more people, at least on the middle to lower end jobs, are getting laid off. I mean, or they're getting less work, and that's the scare, because those are the people that are your big spenders. I mean, those are the people that traditionally are spending more on their discretionary money for the fun stuff instead of just putting it, like you said, into stocks and bonds and financial stuff like a house. They're buying cars and TVs and kind of moving the economy that way. So I would definitely say that I still feel by the end of this, like I said, by end of this quarter, those numbers are going to get worse. And that's kind of tough because, again, this is the holiday season. This is typically when you should start seeing retail sales picking up. And I know from, in our market, I know it's guns, but it's still retail, that it has still remained relatively flat and low for the time.
And the reason why I brought this this chart up here, Rohi, is to kind of see where exactly are we seeing the majority of the job growth, right? What sector?
Yeah.
And obviously the biggest one here at the end of October is private education and health services. And I think we'll always know that the health service is always a big employment sector. But if you look at government, I mean, that should be scary, only because with government, that means additional spending, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these aren't jobs that are created by the private sector, that are created by government, right?
Yeah.
So that means government money needed.
So it means
to
no
fund
line
these.
to the DMV is what it
Correct,
means, right?
correct. And so, I mean, And could this be inflationary? And the reason why I say this is because whenever we see a expansion of government jobs,
Yeah.
then obviously someone needs to fund those jobs. And how do
Yeah.
we fund those jobs, right?
Yeah.
If we're not creating other jobs to collect the amount of revenue that we normally do to be able to pay for these particular jobs, then we run deficits.
Yeah.
So that means we have to create more money. We have to create more spending.
Yeah.
And that is your second leading sector that is by far.
And that's what's scary, because if you look
yeah.
at the ones that, if you look at industries that, like you said, are, when we talk about how money in the circle of life of money, well, manufacturing, which is one of your biggest ones, is in the biggest loss. And, that's manufacturing is typically a 6 month to 1 year lead into what you should expect for the rest, because what happens is they're taking future orders. So if manufacturing is slowing now, that means they're projecting 6 months to a year they're not going to have the work. And I'm hearing that. That's I think very accurate as far as the charts. But like you said, when you say private education, health services, and government, those generate $0. Those are things that just spend money.
Yeah.
So I think that's where, like you said, it gets scary. And it's frustrating as a taxpayer because you realize like those monies are tax monies, which I would like to have myself. I don't think you need to take my money to hire more government, which doesn't do anything necessarily for me.
So the one thing about private education and health services, so I'm looking at that. I'm trying to break that down. Well, when I look at health services, I'm looking at, well, how do you pay for health services? What kind of monies do you use to pay for health services, right? And we start looking at, well, there's Medicare. There is Medi-Cal, and there's other programs that typically, are government funded.
Correct.
Right? So you could say that maybe a good portion of those jobs in that sector maybe do some government spending.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, a lot of it. I would think that even in private education, if you're asking for vouchers or what have you, and you're looking to go through a certain charter school or something, I'm not sure if charter would be considered private education.
Yeah.
But if you're taking money from public education to then create jobs in the private education, then I would think that, again, that's government spending.
Yeah.
And that in itself could be very inflationary. So that's scary to me to think that, and I think this is probably why when the feds decided to say, hey, I'm going to cut, but I have to be very cautious. Well, you saw it in how people price their markets, right? They each price accordingly. And in our case, with the mortgage world, it seems like, rates are still moderately high.
Yeah.
I think it still prevents people from coming out and saying, hey, I'm ready to buy. And frankly, I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
Right?
But again, if you look at it as a whole, the fact that even the rest of the markets are, pretty much almost close to zero improvement or decline, it shows that we're in a flat economy, which is, not good. We should, we wanted to be in an rising economy, which is, I think, which reflects why the elections happened the way they did, is because, again, people they positioned themselves in such a way that, unfortunately, any minor hiccup, bless you, in the next couple of months is basically gonna be a catastrophic event, and that's what I see. Like you said, with the people I deal with, is they've been living life comfortably, but then something minor like the tires or the brakes or whatever comes up in life, and it breaks them. So something that should be essentially minor, like you should have a couple $100 to spend on whatever you need, is now breaking the bank, and it's like, okay, now I can't make this payment. Okay, now this is trickling down. I can't make this other payment because I got to make this payment, and that's the scary part, because again, no jobs, no money.
So and that brings up an interesting point. Over the last couple months, I've been looking at folks that are looking to purchase, but even that, over the years, understanding the concepts of debt to the income ratio, kind of to your point of where exactly am I at? Am I at a breaking point, right? And this is a good page that I found. This is from Consolidated Credit Solutions. Again, this isn't a promotional ad on them or anything. This is just something I found over the net. But the reason why I like this is because it provides a calculator of how to determine what your debt to income ratio. So a lot of the folks that are looking at us for the first time and want to understand this, especially if you're looking to purchase a home, then you have to understand how much debt are you carrying with all the income you produce, and what levels of that debt to income ratio are safe, and what does that mean, right? And again, everybody's going to have their opinion, but this is what I found online. I thought it was pretty interesting, so I wanted to share that with you and maybe go over this with you, Rohi. You can kind of help me through the process, because I mean, we're gonna add some stuff in there of what we see real life. Maybe some of the folks that come into your shop here, but this is a treat for y'all. If you guys want to understand how this works, again, we're not promoting consolidated credit. This is, again, something I found online. But if they see this show and they want to be part of us and maybe provide some marketing dollars, that would be great. But the debt to income ratio, and a lot of it, do you know how much debt is too much debt for your finances? And what is it? What does that mean, right? So your debt to income ratio allows you to compare the total payments you make each month on your debt to how much money you bring in. We said that pretty much earlier. So let's bring it down to where how we can calculate where you're at and what the results are. So we're just going to take some examples of maybe the average person out here. I mean, we're assuming that the average median income here for the zip codes of 93637, based on what I've seen earlier, you're probably looking about 72, let's just say 80,000, right? Okay. So if that's the case, let's throw in $6,000 a month, right? That's your monthly gross income. Now, that may be different. Again, the average means that there may be a lot of people that make well over $100,000, but there's predominantly more that probably make a little less. Correct. And when it averages out, that's what it is. The median income would probably tell you that, hey, this is where it's in the middle. And we're looking at median incomes, and this is what it's saying. So partner's income, I don't know. I mean, let's just say total income. So I'll put 3,000. Yes, and we're about being equal. We're not about anyone and who the partner is. We're not going to specify here, right? We're not. That's not our job, right? So assuming you have child support or let's just say there's nothing there. There's no Social Security benefits. You're making straight $6,000 a month. No other government assistance, no other payments. But here are your monthly payments, right? So let's talk about rent. And what is your rent on something like that? So what would you say the average rent is here in Madera?
I think when we looked at the numbers last time, I think you're between 15 and 2,000.
Let's say 1,700. Let's split that to 1,750 and see where that's at, right? And obviously, people nowadays have to get to work. So what do you think their car payment would be? I mean, realistically, years back, I remember you could get away with maybe 350, but now, shoot, man, I see them closer to $600 to $700.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that.
Let's be fair. Let's throw a $550. Okay, right? I mean, medical payments. I don't know. I can't say that there is. I'll just throw $50 in there. I don't think that's the case for the majority of us here. But a monthly credit card bill. This is where I do see that there is some payments in that. On the average, I want to say maybe $250. Okay. And then student loans, other installments. I don't know what the average here, but if I'm assuming that there's only one vehicle, right? We're assuming there's one vehicle, and we may be on the very conservative lower end. Yeah. But let's just add other payments of $250 of other items that you may pay, right? Okay. So what does that pretty much do for us there, right? So on a debt to income ratio, what this is saying that remaining amount, your debts are 47%, right? So these are your debts, and this is the remaining amount of money you have left. So what does that mean, though? What does that interpret to? Where are you at if you're at a 47% debt to income ratio? Well, let's find out. So here's where you want to be if you want to be very conservative. What does a debt to income mean? Everyone's financial situation is different, but in general, you can look at your debt to income ratio in the following way. And again, these are their numbers. This isn't something we're just following, but they're saying your debt to income ratio is less than 36. You are carrying a healthy amount of debt for your finances. Consider contributing to a savings for the future or retirement account with any extra money you have left over. So if you fall into this category by doing this calculation, what does that mean? That means all of your debts that you have, your housing and all your credit cards, all your house, your vehicle, auto. If you have all that, you can actually do this yourself. Is divide that by the total gross income you have, and that's going to give you a number. And then you'll find out where you lead, right? If you need additional information on how this works, feel free to call us. We'd be more than happy to guide you and maybe give you some ideas as where Rohi invests his money and maybe where you can help to get people started on the right track with the financial plan, right? But if you're at 36 or under, it's saying that you're healthy and save for the future, right? But if you fall between 37 and 42, your debt is acceptable, but not perfect. Again, this is their opinion. It is possible use some of that extra money to pay off some of your some debts and reserve the rest for savings.
Yeah.
Now, if you're between, which this is where I see a lot of the folks here, if you're between 43 and 49%, this ratio indicates that you may be on the verge of a financial distress. Rohi, talk about that. Talk about that, because you see this a lot.
I do, and I think, again, what I see with individuals like that or even above, I like how they put it on the verge, and I think it's key because the numbers you just inputted didn't account for your electric, your Comcast, your gas, your food on your day to day, because again, regardless of how much you make, you have to eat, you have to sleep, you have to have your internet, your telephone, your amenities in life. And so even with you being us conservative on the numbers you have, I mean, I can easily see that remaining amount that's left, that 48-ish%, easily being gobbled up quite a bit and probably actually even cutting that in half,
Yeah, and that's not even tax. So this is all your gross income.
Yeah.
So you still have to be taxed by the state, by the Fed, local.
Yeah, and I think what's key is, like you said, the ratio that's above, that encouragement for people to put money aside. And I think it's not so much, and I know on your guys, when it comes to like the month to month, because the house is, you're kind of in it for life in a sense. So you can't, you might have a good month, you might have a bad month, but your guys are looking at it in the long term. But in the short term, in general, I mean, it just means that when you have that good month, if you can put some more aside for when you have a bad month, I think that's the difference of where people are at right now. It's not so much, as a whole, I mean, they're maybe doing okay because, like I said, maybe they didn't buy the extra stuff this month, but next month they will. So, but they're not saving it. It's always that emergency thing that basically flips people's lives upside down. Like I said, maybe they get in a car wreck. Maybe they have some unexpected health issue. Maybe their kid breaks their arm. These last minute expenses that come up is really what can get people off track. And but it's tough because as people, humans are, if they were being good and they had that little nest egg and maybe it's like $3,000 now and it's sitting in the bank, there's a lot of excitement to want to spend it,
Well, and now with the inflationary environment, I mean, I think that those savings are being eroded by the minute.
Correct.
Because a lot of these folks that had saved money are not seeing it, and that's the struggle that it's real. The struggle now. This isn't a doom and gloom exercise,
No.
Never by no means should you not want to pursue purchasing a home or a vehicle if that's what you need. I mean, I always look at it this way: if it's something that you need, I mean, obviously the rents are pushing really high to where it doesn't make sense anymore to rent, but to buy, then you're ready.
Yeah.
But look at this carefully because it's just giving you based on risk that they see, right? Based on default rates that they see. This is where you're at the verge of of distress, right? It's not saying that everyone falls into that category. It's just saying more often than none, when you're in this level of high debt to income ratio, you may be on the verge of distress.
Yeah.
Now, if your debt to income ratio is over 50%, you have too much debt and you need ways to reduce your debt immediately, right? Obviously, they tell you to call, but again, this may be a call for service, right? They may be soliciting. And here are some of the questions that I get, right? So what if my ratio is high, but I don't feel like I'm in a financial distress? In some cases, particularly when your ratio is between 43 to 49, you may not really feel like you're financially distressed, even though you put such a high portion of your income towards paying your debts each month. Keep in mind that healthy financial outlook includes setting aside money for savings as well as regularly contributing to some kind of retirement account to prepare you for the future. In addition, while breaking even every month may make it seem like you're doing okay, one emergency, and you said this, or unforeseen expense could send your finances spiraling down out of control. And that's the key that I think that you drove home is that you just need that one little incident to take place because we're human. We're not perfect. As much as we plan, sometimes we fail to plan.
And I think, you know, while people may feel overwhelmed by this because, again, like you said, rent's going up or, you know, interest rates or cost of everything, but it's to remind people that you are still in control of a lot of things. And it may seem odd, but when we talk about like tighten your belts, like, you know, you can make sure you can be like that energy person that just, let's turn the light off, you know, let's lower the heat, you know, temperature, things like that. You know, you do enough of that, you could cut your bills down quite a bit. Let's stop going to Starbucks and let's, you know, go buy a Keurig or whatever you want. Make your own coffee at home, you know, or if it's you know, the job place, like, you know, you have your own coffee maker. And when you start looking at it like, well, that cup of coffee only cost me maybe $1.50 versus going to, you know, your place across the street that's charging $3 to $5. Like, there's a lot of things people don't realize they have control of that they can easily reduce what they're spending.
And I think that's one thing you said, have control of. I think a lot of people don't have control. I think that's the problem, is that they don't have control. And I think it's partly due to a lot of the consumerism that
I live off of that. I need that, though.
We're fed by that every single day. They're reminding us how important it is to get your Starbucks cup, right?
It is.
And you know, it's funny, but there was a time where things were good. You know, the economy was good. Well, at least for us, our industry was good. And I kid you not, 3 to 4 times, maybe 3 times a week, I would make a stop to Starbucks. You know, I would say, you know what, hey guys, do you want a coffee? I'll get you a coffee.
As you drink your Starbucks, yes.
And now I'm having to order the shortest one just because I'm trying to
Comebacks.
to cut back. And I got to do it when I earn enough points.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but it was a smart investment that my wife and I said, let's go ahead and invest in a nice coffee machine, right? I mean, because the way I look at it, if I go at this rate, the coffee's at $3, that's $15. It could be anywhere between $12 to $15 a week if you're buying additional coffee for someone.
Yeah.
It adds up.
It does.
We don't see those little tiny expenses. We do not see them. But at the end of the month, they add up. If you go back, this is one exercise I try to tell people. I try to tell my kids, and they're really young at this time, but it's important to know because nobody taught me this, is if you really want to know where the majority of your money is leaking, just write it down. And it's easy. Go back. It's an exercise. It'll take you, yes, maybe half an hour, maybe an hour, but or more. You may uncover that there's expenses there that you don't know that are just... there's leeches. I call them leeches because they're draining you. And it could be from maybe unnecessary, and I hate to do this, unnecessary cable. Now that everything's streaming, it may be unnecessary. You may want to start looking at your phone and see, hey, do I have the best deal for my 2 lines, for my 3 lines? Am I getting the best deal? Maybe compare other plans. And then you have other stuff that you got going. You know, you got groceries, you got outings, you got dinners, you got lunches. Look at all those things and find out how much you're spending on these extra curricular activities and or expenses that are not necessary. Again, need. To me, it's the need. What is the biggest need for you to stay afloat throughout this environment? And people can do it. I mean, obviously, it takes a little bit of change. I've cut back on certain things. I haven't come back completely, but I'm on the verge of saying, hey, maybe I don't need this anymore. Maybe I don't need this anymore. Again, I have to be looking out for what's in the best interest of me and my family, but also what do I need? What can I live without that I can certainly move forward and channel these waters until maybe the industry or the economy gets better.
And some of your credit cards, well, you know, if you have them set up, they can actually give you some of that information. If you're using credit cards to pay for a lot of your expenses, they can actually break down some of that for you. I know. You know, one of the things I've been talking about with some of the younger people is about their credit score and getting them to understand how important just that credit score is. You know, that dictates a lot of like what you guys do with it when it comes to interest. Like if, you know, explaining to them that if the two of us go to buy the same exact car, just because my number may be 800 and your number may be 500, we're going to pay a vastly different price at the end of the day for that car.
And the same thing applies with mortgages. Unfortunately, that's how they mitigate risk, right? So if you have a lower FICO score, then they'll add a certain amount on that margin just to say, hey, I'm going to mitigate this risk. Aside from the fact that you're already paying mortgage insurance, you're also going to pay higher amount on the interest rate, right? So those things do help you, and I always tell people, look, if you're looking to purchase a home and you're going to utilize either government financing, which is your FHA, USDA, VA, they're less punitive on the interest and adjustments that they make than a conventional financing. Obviously, conventional financing is looking for a 760 plus, right? Because at that point, they'll give you the better rate with mortgage insurance if you're not coming in with 20% or more.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way to look at it. If I have really good scores, I have a good down payment, which is 5% or more, then I'm probably going to get a better rate. Now, in comparing them to the government rates, right now it seems like the government rates are more attractive, so people are starting to head towards the government.
Yeah.
FHA was only there to capture no more than 25% of the home market, but it
Yeah.
seems like they're overloaded as well.
Yeah.
And that's one thing to look at because it used to be where Fannie and Freddie were private government enterprises. And after the 2008 crisis, and it looks like the government absorbed them. So we nationalized that portion of it, and that's scary.
Yeah.
Because now we are the government is insuring all these mortgages again, and all they have to do when things go wrong, we've seen it before, is hey, bail out, no problem.
Yep.
Call the Treasury, fill out, and the feds will start printing out money. I don't know where they get the money, but they certainly print out money, and that becomes very inflationary.
Yeah.
Right, and this is where we're at today. So.
Well, good thing is that money's going to have Donald Trump's face on it.
Well, there you go. Now it looks like you can buy coins, you can buy books, Bibles, and everything. So, yeah. Well, congratulations to all those that that were victorious over the election. Again, the way I look at it is we still have to get up in the mornings, put on our pants one leg at a time, regardless of who wins. And obviously, does the economic environment change? And in your store, we'll find out, right?
Yeah,
we'll see
correct.
where these markets are. But I'm going to take your advice, and I'm going to let this run for another day, and then I'm going to do what you said and dump it, right? Well, the funny thing is, a story came out recently, and again, Warren Buffett is pulling out all of his stocks, And when this guy is doing something, some people pay attention because I don't know to what extent. I mean, the guy is older. I'm not sure if he's just saying, I'm done with all my assets and what have you, but it seems like he's looking at some forecast that we can't look at. Obviously, we don't have that inside that he does, but maybe there's something to say about that.
Yeah.
Any last words you want to add here, Rohini?
No, I think just like you said, congrats to those who won, and I'm truly believe they understand the responsibilities they're taking on. So
now, you did ask me a question, and you asked me what's the process if in fact these results stay where they're at, right?
Correct.
Especially when it comes to the council seats. Well, you have a councilwoman that'll be moving over to mayor if that's the case, and that seat will be open. And how that happens is that then there's nominations that come before the council, where the council will have the opportunity to either put that as a special election, which is costly to the city, or we can do an appointment. And that's one of the options that we had. We had this happen back when the mayor, the current mayor, had done the same. He was representing District 5. He won the mayor's seat. We left the seat open. Did we want to go to a special election? And I think we ended up going. We couldn't decide on the appointment, so we went through a special election, and hence why.
And when you say cost, I mean, like, what's a number?
You got to put that
it?
on the ballot. And quite frankly, there may be some costs. Looking at how much term is left, Councilwoman Gallegos, I believe, got elected in 2022. So there's 2 full years left. So is it worth us spending the money to try to put that?
That's what I'm asking. I guess like to understand when you say city spending the money, I mean.
Well, you have to fork that out because you have to give that to the Madera County Elections Office to put that on the ballot.
Like $100?
No, a couple thousand.
Okay.
It's pretty costly. So we can certainly circle back with that number. But it would be. But the way, I think, the easiest way, I think, and the less costly way would be to make an appointment. Now, obviously, we don't know who that person may be, but there's nominations that are brought. People that say, hey, I'm the right candidate and the right fit for that spot because I'm from this district, I'm here, right? And they come before the council. We have an opportunity to appoint, or, again, if we can't make a decision, then it goes to a special election.
Okay.
But we hope that, again, congratulations to everyone. And if that's the case, and that may be the direction that we may have to take. And we'll look forward to that as well when time comes.
Nice.
But other than that, we wanted to thank you again for watching us. If you find this show informative, please subscribe. I know we're trying to get more audience out there. We'd like to do this at least once a week, every Wednesday. But like, subscribe, and share. Anything else you want to add, Roy?
That's